I'm back, Stevie GB, Suffocating in Suburbia. And I want to tell you something about this guest I have coming on now. And we've known each other, I want to say, probably 20 years, maybe 15. 15, I don't know, I lose track of time, but it's been a while. And what I love about Ellen is she's a go getter and she's just always busy. She's always doing stuff, working hard in this business. And we're going to talk about that, about how the business is for comedians and she's not only a comedian, she's a comedian, an actor, and now a published author, a podcaster, and I consider her a very close friend. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is, the Greek goddess of comedy herself, Ellen Karis. Hi, Ellen.
Hi, thank you. That's such a lovely intro. We have known each other for a long time.
I met you the first time at the brokerage. The
Yeah.
brokerage. It was like an open mic. I don't know what it was, but I think it was back when Gary Smith used to do that, pay $5 to get 5 minutes or something like that.
I
You
I
remember that?
well, I certainly was there when Gary Smith owned it. I
Right.
don't think I ever went to an open mic there because I live in the city, so I never went to the open mics on the island, but it was probably one of the shows sort of showcasey or,
Right, like a Thursday or
right,
Sunday. He
right,
used to do
right. The
Thursdays
Thursday,
and
Sunday,
Sundays.
yeah, Thursday, Sunday show for sure that he would just have some of us. And I remember I was at Governor's because I did Governor's first because somebody introduced me to Trusin. And then I was in the green room with Tim Crompier and Darren Dillon, two friends of ours.
Hmm.
And they were talking about the brokerage. And I'm like, what is this brokerage? And they're like, we'll take you. And they were so sweet. And that's what I love about the Long Island comics. Not that
Right.
the city comics aren't like that, but it's just different. It's just it's a different atmosphere. You guys know each other. It's a town thing, a high school thing. And so anyway, we went down there and I'll never forget Gary and Tim introduced me and they're like, she's really funny. And,
Mhm.
Gary, he was like reading his paper and yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I'll never forget. And Darren goes, she's funny and she's not a pain in the ass.
That sounds like Gary.
So he's like, well, that Darren said that to
Oh,
Gary.
Darren
No,
said
no,
that to
Darren
Gary.
said that to Gary. I was like,
Okay,
that's
that
not
makes
funny. And
sense.
then Gary's like, all right, come Sunday, and
Yeah.
whatever. And so then that's how that all started. But
Yeah.
I love doing comedy on Long Island. I didn't grow up there, but my cousins lived in Garden City, so I did spend a lot of time out in Long Island. And then as I got older, dating people, my husband is from Long Island. My
Yeah.
brother-in-law is from Long Island. My cousin that I visited in Garden City, I'm very close with. I'm godmother to her son. She lives in Port Washington now. She lives in Manhasset. So I have a lot of roots there.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it was a different atmosphere back then. I remember, going. You can go to the brokerage, you can go to Governor's, you can go to McGuire's. It was different different groups of comedians, sometimes the same ones, and there was certainly, you're right. There was a camaraderie there. I don't know what the city. I never felt that. I didn't go in the city enough to really feel that, but I felt like the city there was such a glut. There was too many comics and too many places to perform. So if you ran into the same comedian twice, that was like unusual. It
Right.
felt like for me.
It was
Um,
it was it was different. I mean,
yeah,
it's different. It's just it's got a different vibe.
absolutely.
There was a lot of bringer shows. Yes, there were more clubs. There were also a lot of bar shows. And then you have the comics, the sort of the TV credit comics.
Right.
But I mean, Long Island, I always have said this, has bred so much talent. Jerry Seinfeld, Rodney Dangerfield. I mean, it just the list goes
Yeah,
on
Kevin
and on and on.
James, Rosie O'Donnell. I mean, there's so many.
Ray Romano,
Yeah,
Kevin James. I mean, there's just so much. So it's definitely its own star as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. I agree. But I thought, I remember your act pretty much, and you were so delightful, and you were this cute little thing, and you were doing your celebrities. You were talking about celebrities up there, and I think you still do that, but maybe not as much. You've certainly evolved since then. But I thought you definitely had some kind of spark, and I enjoyed that. And we worked together many times. Either we were on my show, I was on your show, and or we wound up on a Rick Morgan show or a Paul Anthony show. So it was always fun to see you, and work with you. How do you feel like your writing process has evolved? Like I said, back then you were kind of like, I don't want to say Kathy Griffin, Joan Rivers, but I sort of like that. Like I think that's what you would you say you were modeling yourself after somebody specific or
I didn't do it on purpose.
right?
I have been, and I'm saying this, I believe me, I'm not full of myself, I swear.
No, say whatever you want.
I get the Joan Rivers thing
Right.
a lot. So definitely when I get up there, I probably sound a little more New York. I mean, I sound New York anyway, but you
Hmm.
know, depending on, of course, comedy is about the writing and obviously the presentation,
Right.
the attitude, the timing, who you're talking to, know your audience. There's so many different ingredients that go into it,
Of course.
which I learn, and you still learn over. You're still learning. It's always you never stop learning. I remember listening to Al Pacino on the inside the actor studio, and James Lipton, God rest his soul,
Yeah.
asked Al Pacino about using a coach and learning. And Al Pacino's like, yes, of course. And I'll never forget. He goes, you're always learning. You never stop learning in this business. I remember thinking to myself, if Al Pacino is saying that, then clearly the same holds for Ellen Karis, if
That's
not
true.
a lot more. So to get to your question, the writing process, I didn't look to copy anybody's style or imitate anybody or even to try to be like anybody. I let it come natural. And I think naturally I have that Joan Rivers, Richard Lewis is sort of like
Right. Well, it's that New Yorker thing. You got the New
yeah,
Yorker thing. Yeah.
neurotic.
Right.
But
Like I get Larry David, I get Woody Allen. It's like it's
right. Well,
that New York inbred Brooklyn. There's no way to
right.
escape it.
And once there's a famous person, they're going to always try to match you with that. Listen, even in acting, when they do casting, it's always a Julia Louis-Dreyfus type, a Juliana Margulies type. You know, that's what
Right.
winds up happening. For the unknown people are put in in a category of what kind of known person they are.
Right.
So I didn't start out to do any of that. That just sort of evolved.
Hmm.
I am a bit of, and you know this, I'm a student, right? You and I we have so much in common, aside from the fact that we're both Greek. And
Yes.
I know you're half Italian, but you know I always say you're Greek.
Yes, I know.
I always just say like you're Stavros to me, and that's it.
I love it.
We were both accountants. So, we've got sort of like that mindset. And I'm always like, you always see me with paper, and hard paper, not
Yes.
my phone. I'm old
Right.
school, hard paper. I always have a pen. I always have a notebook,
I love it.
and I write, and I always try to have somewhat of a set list prepared as
Hmm.
much as I can, or just sort of topics. Again, it's all been like an evolution, but I'm at the point where it's just like, there's so much garbage going on, and there's so much hate and unhappiness and all this other stuff. I just want to make people happy. I
Right.
want to entertain. I'm not looking to provoke.
You don't
Even
want to assault the audience. You want
no,
to, they're
no,
there to
and
be
you know what?
entertained.
And again, I think this comes from my upbringing,
Mhm.
being an accountant, being, because our pedigree is to be professional. Not that other
Mhm.
comics aren't professional. Don't take that the wrong way, but it's just
I
like
know what you
we've
mean.
got a bit of that corporateness in us. We try to play by the rules. I mean,
Yep.
I'm not looking to fight with an audience member. I'm not looking to get anybody thrown out. I mean, it really would have to be a very, very big thing for me to tell somebody to shut up, which I don't think I really ever did. I think once or twice I had a situation, with because they were drunk,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Of course.
But that's not my jam. That's not what I'm looking to do. And when I get hired for privates and corporates and stuff, I ask, what are the rules? Can I talk about this? Can I be a little spicy? Can I say the crap? I won't probably drop an F-bomb anyway, because I know it's
Mhm.
not appropriate, even if people say it is. And that's it. And I also learned that because I've done a lot of the Greek churches,
Right.
and I've had to kind of, go by their rules. So the process has and as we evolve in our writing. I mean, my writing has also been very reflective of my life. So when I started this, I was single. my parents were on me about getting married, sort of like all that. I would just had my nieces. I think I had like just one nephew. I had a lot of stories about my grandmother. I was just different. There was other things. I always, my act tends to be my personal life, and now, which means my husband, my family, my Greek family, and now I do some stuff with the kids because they're a little older, and then something topical, current event type of thing where until it's not relevant anymore, and then I'll just do something else, and then self-deprecation because I feel there's so much there that I can make
Always.
fun of that people can relate to. So
Hmm.
that's, I think, the sort of like the sections that I
The
tend to work.
categories. Well, when I was trying to teach comedians, and I stopped doing it, but I did enjoy it. But one thing I told them to do was your act is like a house, and every houses have rooms, and each room is a category of your life. So when you think of a joke, you think, what room does that belong in? Because they always ask, how do you grow your act? I said, you're just thinking in categories and boxes, and you just grow that. You're just adding on to that topic. And next thing you know, your 5 minutes becomes 10 and 20 and 30. And that's how, and you're not really thinking of all new things. You're just adding to what you already have. Because what
Exactly.
you already have is about you anyway. So you're just adding more about you and you're building that persona and your act becomes you. And that's what a comedian is. It's about themselves. And
And
so
I always
you
wanted to
do
make
that.
sure that I did do some autobiographical stuff because I think that's important. I think
Of
I
course.
think for the most part, my opinion, I think audiences, they look up, they want to know who you are, where you come from,
Right.
what's your story, that type of thing. And like I was going to say is, you know, we're hired. I always looked at it, even when we don't get paid. I always look at it because the audience does pay, and my obligation is to these people that came. And I remember Eddie Brill. Eddie Brill was the booker for David Letterman way back when, and
That's
he
right.
also he's a comic, but
I
used to
know Eddie.
he used to teach this weekend course that I remember it was like, you got to take it, you got to take it, and I did. And there were definitely a few things from there that I still keep in my life today. And I remember the one thing that he said, that I thought was so profound, was he said one of his most funnest shows was a show that he did for two people, and he wound up just he actually wound up sitting down on the stage, at the edge of the stage and sort of talking to them. And he said, never take it out on the people that didn't come.
Right.
Those the people that can you owe it to the people that did show up. Forget about, so when we all always hear comics go, oh, I'm playing in my living room, and you can make a little joke about that, I'm not saying no, but sometimes we've seen it where comics are angry because only 10 people showed up, and it's like, no, 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 those 10 people, that's right, those 10 people showed up, that's exactly it, and you owe them a show.
You're right. You're right.
So
You don't know how many times I've thought that because we've all been there where we see a small audience and comics are like, I'm not going to try. Why should I try? Why should you try? Why wouldn't you try? First of all, you're doing yourself a disservice for not trying. So you should always try your best for yourself. And these 5 people paid money to see a show. Why do you want to cheat them?
They,
So
right. They
that's
left the
exactly what
house,
you're
they
saying.
got in the car or took a subway or took a cab, but they
Right.
paid, they're paying a 2 drink minimum. They're spending their night. They're probably going to a job the next day at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Why? I mean, they came to see you, or to see a show. So I've always had that mindset as well. And I
That's good.
and I think it certainly has bode me well, and I think it's earned me the reputation of being a not a pain in the ass. Sort
Oh,
of
you
just
never are. You never are.
like what Darren said. I try. I try.
Now let's go off topic for a second.
Mhm.
I introduced you as a comedian, an actor, author, which is not gender specific. But that's my question. Now, do you feel? What do you like with all of this going on? I'm not going to get too political, but people like what's wrong with comedian and what's wrong with actress? Don't you think it kind of? I think it's demeaning to women to say actor. Like you're making everybody the same. Where's that identity? I mean, you know where I'm going with that? Am I?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something right now.
Yeah.
You can call me a girl. I'm told I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Actor, actress, what you know, I mean, actress is the female version, but
Right,
actor is the overall version. So we're
right.
all sort of actor. You know, it's fine.
Non-gender
I don't get,
specific.
yeah, I don't get, and by the way, I'm a she, and I want to be referred to as a she,
You're not a they?
and I'm not a they. No disrespect. I'm just letting you know what I am, and that's it. I don't get. I always thought that whole girl thing was like. I'm like, what's the big deal? Who cares? We're all girls. Girlfriend, girl. I don't know. I don't get. So that's fine. It's totally fine.
Yeah, I
Comedian.
just think it's odd that we've fallen into that trap because and again, I think that's kind of the comics, playground is to go in there and make fun of that kind of stuff
Right.
because, that's society. We're the mirror to society. I remember I did a show with Uncle Floyd. You know what? I think you were on that show out in Riverhead, the Vale Levitt
Yes.
Theater.
Yes. Yes.
Remember
Yes.
that?
Yes.
And
I do.
Uncle Floyd was on, and he was backstage, and he said to me, people don't appreciate how smart comedians are. It's like we have to sit down, we have to write our stuff, and we have to perform it, and we have to think about timing and audience. And he says it's very smart. And I don't think people realize how smart you have to be. And I was like, yeah, that's very true.
It's a lot of multitasking.
Yes.
You have to, and it takes a lot of time.
Hmm.
It takes a very long time
Everybody wants to rush it.
to find your voice, to build
Hmm.
your act, to get comfortable under situations that are different every single time. Then there's the whole business aspect of it.
Oh, yeah, let's
You
talk
and
about
I,
that.
coming from corporate America, through a
Right.
structure, a paycheck, a 401k, a
Hmm.
whole thing about that, that whole world, um, uh, and a different pay structure, if you want to call it that, dealing with different people,
Yeah.
different situations. Alcohol is involved. I mean, I personally don't really drink other than my 2 glasses of red wine a month.
Hmm.
But all of that. And again, I'm not putting anybody down. And I came to it, obviously later in the game. It wasn't like I was 18. But and in a little bit of a different era. So it wasn't the 80s where I think
Hmm.
we've all heard about that was a crazy time. So I came into it a little more, with more maturity and stuff. But I mean, I could definitely see where if you're really young, it's like a free for all, especially for guys.
Right.
I think I could see definitely where it's a big free for all, but it really does take a long time. And you talked about writing. Um, I, the one thing that I really wish I was better at is a more of a structured environment in the way that I write. And so I try to put a set list together almost every time, although I haven't been doing that as much lately, but it is by date and by what show it is. So like last night, you and I did a corporate. So it would have been one January 21st, but the estate planners, blah, 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 and I
Right.
would have put that as a title. I used the same set list that I did from I did a birthday party Sunday night,
Right.
and it was also a shorter amount of time. So I just looked at it really quick and I go, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do that. But I really wish it was more organized than that.
Right. Right. Right.
And I wish I sat down and I just focused on the writing more, as opposed to I have a thought, I grab a piece of paper. I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, oh, that's a good bit. I mean, I'm trying, and I have to write it down. I still can't. By the time I grab my phone and I'm like, I'm nuts. I have to write it down
How many times have you lost great ideas? Like you had it in your head and you forgot to write. Doesn't that
every day,
drive you nuts?
every day,
That
I'm
happens
working
to me
out
all the
and
time.
I'm working out. I'm like, and I can hear her, 5, 6, 7. And I'm like thinking, oh yeah. And when I said hello to that person, I said nah, as opposed to, which is like the Greek, like go to hell and I should
Mhm.
do this, whatever. And then it escapes. It's just
Gone.
by the time I'm done, it's like, shit,
And then
you
you're
know.
walking around trying to think of what it was. It's horrible. You
And I
go
and,
back.
and the thing is, when you said it, you cracked yourself up.
Yes.
It was hilarious. It's like I can't remember.
I hate that. I hate that. But that happens. That happens. Let's talk a little bit about now. You you're a full-time comic, right? I mean, you quit your job and you just went for it. How long ago did you do that?
12 years ago.
Wow, that's brave. I've yet to do that. I mean, I'm sort of semi-retired. I'm still working like part-time, but it's hard to just let go. And I admire you for that, but I also think you're a little crazy. But you can always go back. But have you ever thought about just like quitting and saying, forget this and go back?
Yeah, about 5 times a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
After every bad gig.
Yes, especially like when I go to friend's house, like last 2 weeks ago, we went out to Long Island. And as a matter of fact, my friend Mary is married to an accountant. He has his own practice out in Long Island. And they have this very lovely house
Mhm.
in Port Washington, beautifully decorated, two beautiful SUVs in the driveway.
Mhm.
Both their kids are in private school, everything. They just came back from Jamaica, this, that. And I'm like, I think, first of all, I'm not a grown up, okay? Because I've yet to live in a house. Or, well, I did live in a house with my parents for a while, but I'm just saying, my own home.
Right.
We drive a very old car. I mean, just so many things that I do that still feel college. So so yes, and they live a nice lifestyle, and they're talking about getting another place in Florida. So yes, all the time, all the time.
Yeah, yeah, but you keep
I
going,
do.
and that's good. And it's hard now, which I said I'm not going to mention this thing that's going on, but I'm pretty confident that everything's going to come back, and it's going to come back even stronger, because people need to laugh.
Well, I agree with you,
Hmm.
and I won't get into some of the reasons why, but the main reason, and you know me, so you'll know it's not going to surprise you when I say this. God is bigger than all of this. And one of the one of the problems that has, to me, evolved in this world, and social media has exacerbated it for sure, is the egos.
Mm.
This Lots of egos from all different parts of the world and all different sectors of society. Okay,
Hmm.
and the ego and the power. And one of the main reasons one of the many reasons, I should say, why I make sure I still go to church every Sunday, and my church is very close to me, so there's really no excuse. But because it makes me come back, because after a week of craziness, I need to go there and and stand and sit and pray in peace to remind myself that God is big. O Theos είναι megalos. God is big.
Yeah.
God is in control,
Yeah.
not whoever the president is, Congress, this one that's got a show, this one that's got 30 million social media, Instagram, whatever. God is bigger than all of this. And I also believe that everything happens for a reason from above.
Mm.
And I just think this is part of the plan. But I do think that I agree. I do think that we will come out of this. It's very tragic that, that so many of the good generation, the people in the 70s, 80s, and 90s
Mm.
that have that great history, that have some really great morals, that came from a simpler time, complicated in its own way, but simpler and better in its own way, have passed.
Yeah.
That to me is what's so painful.
Yeah.
One of the
I
more things
agree.
that are like painful. But in terms of entertainment, I was just on the phone with a fellow comedian, and we were talking about some plans. And I said, actually, I was on two phone calls before, and I said, when everybody gets the A-OK, it's going to be like the roaring 20s.
I
Like
agree.
the floodgates are going to go, because people are just dying to do something other than eat in the bus lane,
Yeah.
or eat under a heat lamp or whatever, or eat in their backyard.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I completely agree with you.
I agree with
And
that
but we
too.
should be prepared for that as comedians. So that's why when this came down, I promised myself, and I'm not saying I was 100%, but I promised myself that I would try to be as productive as possible. And that was why getting the book out, aside from the fact
Ah,
that I had
we got
started
to
it
talk
five
about
years
the
ago,
book.
but I said to myself, I have to, I have to have some things checked off my checklist. I had done a film, a film about being short, a
I
short,
saw that.
a short. It's called Short People. Hashtag Short People Problems about being short. And I started it not this past summer, the summer before with my nephew,
Yeah.
and we finally got that out. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds so stupid, but like it was a little. I wanted to do a short film,
A
and we
short
got
film about being short.
a short. And I went, and I'm just going to say this here because I feel completely fine saying it out loud anyway. I originally wanted to call it Short Lives Matter way before. And as everything started to evolve,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
remember saying, and I mean, of course, some of you are like, you can't do that. Oh my God. And I'm like,
yeah.
but it was my idea. You know? It's like, well, I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. It's
Yeah,
like, oh my, so it's crazy. But anyway, I was like, all right, fine. I don't want to upset the, whomever. And so I changed it. So I got that out, and I did
that's
a little
great.
tutorial about making spanakopita. And just, again, it doesn't have to be these huge things, but just to feel like you creatively
Right.
accomplished
Hmm.
something. I've got my podcast too. Now I'm doing it twice a week. I decided to do one sort of ranty one solo half hour, and then have the second one a guest.
Oh,
So
you've had some great guests too. I think I was on one. I was definitely on one,
you,
of course.
you, you were a great guest. You came, and you know what? When we did the show, when I was doing it, then we did it. You came into the city, which
Right.
was I really appreciated, and I was doing it at the comic strip at their podcast studio. But now everything has been zoomed. I mean, the good news is that now you can get, and anybody that's going to say yes, it's not a logistical problem. I'm not wedded to a studio schedule and all that, so it's great. So I've had more flexibility, but I'm a people person. I really missed being in that environment,
Of course.
headphones on,
Yeah.
talking, looking, taking
Mhm.
a picture together afterwards, maybe going for coffee. I think you and I went for lunch beforehand, which
Yeah.
was really lovely. So anyway, yes,
Yes. So
you're
tell me a little bit about your acting career. I mean, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and Sisters, the movie with Tina Fey movie, right?
do you know, you don't know, I'm saying that's rhetorical. The first years and years ago, the first like independent short film thing that I got from like Backstage. Okay, so this is how far back we're going. When we used to buy Backstage magazine newspaper, and I
That's
used
right.
to submit my headshot. The first thing I ever did, you know what it was called? The Accountant.
No.
And there was a million of us like back. I never saw the film. I don't know what it was about, but it was called The Accountant, which I thought was really,
Was this the Ben Affleck movie, The
no,
Accountant?
it wasn't. It
That
was
was
before, it was
later.
something in New York. It was actually like at an auditorium in a church or whatever. I'd have to really go back to my notes. It was in the 90s, but it was
Ah,
like one of the first things that I ever did. So when I was working, again, I'm a student, and this whole thing with stand-up comedy really evolved. I took, finally, after I did my CPA, I did my MBA, I was going for my CFA. And I
wow.
took the first part, I passed it. I took the second part, I didn't really study, and I actually failed, like sort of borderline. And then I was going to take it again, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm just like, I want to just express myself. I want to have fun. I have stories in my head. I love telling stories. I know I'm funny, I'm this and that. So I took an improv class, never before, ever. No theater, nothing, bupkis. And I took an improv class at the new school, and I loved it. And then I forgot what the next class was, and another one, and another one. Then I took an acting class. Then I wound up studying with a teacher for a year and a half, and then another teacher, and then ultimately Joanna Bexon,
Oh,
who a lot of the Long Island comics and a
yes.
lot of comedians have studied with her, Ray Romano, Kevin James. But I'll never forget that first teacher that I had, that I studied with her for like a year and a half. I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, she'd have us improv something from our lives. And one of my sisters was getting married at the time, and it was like every weekend was like big drama, something going on, big fight, this, that, blah, blah, blah. my brother-in-law, my one brother-in-law is not Greek. He couldn't wrap his head around the fact that everybody is a control freak and they're calling the shots, and Yaya's calling the shots, and Gloria's calling the shots. And so, and then the relatives from Cyprus are calling the shot. Like, he couldn't understand why everybody was making a decision about his wedding.
That's the Greek way.
So it's the Greek wedding. So every weekend every week I would come in and do like improv some scene that happened. So the teachers, her name is Penny Templeton. I never forget, she goes to me, okay, she was laughing. She's like, I have two notes for you. One is, you should write a one-woman show about your sister's Greek wedding. And this is before the movie. Oh. And I go, who the hell's going to want to see that? Because I have vision. Yeah. And the second thing, that third eye was really working that day. Yeah. And the second thing she said was, I hope that you talk about all this in your stand-up. It's hilarious. And I go, I don't do stand-up. And she goes, this is what she said. She goes, get some. That's what she said. And that night, that was my one aha moment in my life. Not when I met my husband, not that wasn't lovely, but I'm just going to be honest. The one aha moment was, I get in the cab. I'll never forget. I get in the cab. I was living on the West Side at the time. And I remember stand up. And I loved stand up. And right. Seinfeld was on. And at that time, it was Brett Butler, Roseanne, the pre-drama. I don't know. I think maybe Ray's show was on. Kevin's wasn't. Tim Allen, all of these. Right. All these comics were springboard into a sitcom. And yes. My dream, still is my dream, is to be on a sitcom, because I grew up watching sitcoms and I loved it, and it was my escape. Yeah. And so I said, wow, this is my way of getting on a sitcom. And by the way, it's really great when you are naive, because you don't know. Because if I had a crystal ball, I'd be like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna go and see if there's a job in portfolio management, because I'm not doing this. Right. And then I went to the comic strip. I took a course, which was literally like me and D.F. Sweetler, who still teaches there, and who looks exactly the same. I'm not quite sure what kind of cream he uses at night. Right. But and I remember he said to me, I will never forget what he said. He goes, always write clean, because you can make clean dirty. You can't make dirty clean. And again, another really great note that stuck in my head. And made sense to me. And again, that's something also I always do. And then I did the first time on stage, and the Bringer show, and the rest, and it just evolved and took up. And again, that was 20 years ago. It takes a really long time. I think if you're not passionate about this and you don't really want to do it, don't do it. Don't do it. It's too hard. It's too heartbreaking. It's the square peg in the round hole. You have to want to do it. Yeah, and it can't be about being famous either, because it's not that that was my goal, but it can't be about that.
Well, did I ever tell you the 5 stages? What I came up with, the 5 stages of comedy. All right. The first stage, and you already said it, awakening. Oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do. Right. Stage two is delusion. I'm going to be, like you said, I'm going to be on a sitcom. Right. Then it's disillusion. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. What's happening here? Then it's, God forbid you don't get to this stage, bitterness. Why him and not me? Right. Why her and not me?
Oh yeah, no.
And then finally it becomes acceptance. I love it. I'm going to do it. I don't care anymore. This is great.
It's a gift.
It's a gift.
It's a gift.
And I'm making people happy. And the best compliment I always hear when I get off stage is, I had the worst day and I didn't think about my horrible day while you were on stage. And that's the best compliment a comedian could hear.
Right.
And and then they say, I love that joke you told, and it's the joke from the other comedian on the show. It wasn't even your joke. I love that too. But I just say thank you. But it's great, and the camaraderie and all of that. I've
made some.
You still have that. You still sink back into that delusion. You still sink back into those disillusion moments and the bitterness moments, and it's hard to not get out of that. And but it's great that you do other things. Let's talk about your book. You wrote a book. I've been trying to write a book for 10 years. I can't do it. Yeah, congratulations. And it's a
Thank you.
children's book?
It's a children's book. So it's called, I don't know if you can see it, if I'm doing, because now that I think I have to go like
There you
this.
go. I see it now.
Right. Okay.
Special people.
Special people, godparents in the Orthodox Christian faith.
Wow, that is very specific.
Very specific.
It's almost like a textbook.
It's a children's book. It's an illustration book.
Okay.
I wrote it for a bunch of reasons. First of all, I am a godparent myself. My husband and I do not have any children, but I have.
I think in Greek it was Nonna, right? Nonna is the godfather.
So Nuno is godfather and Nuna is godmother. Right.
No.
Right.
Okay.
Did were you baptized Catholic?
Greek Orthodox. Greek
You
Orthodox.
were Greek Orthodox, right? Yeah, that's what I thought.
And I had a Nuno Nicky was his
Nuno
name.
Nicky, yeah.
He'd send me $10 on my birthday every year.
That's right. That's what godparents did back then. That's exactly it.
Again.
And so I'm a godmother 7 times over.
Oh wow! Congratulations.
And so I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
I also, it's a joy and it's great. I mean, some of them are my sister's kids and then the others are my cousin's kids. And it really has given me the opportunity to, be a somewhat of a parent. And I say this, especially to women that, whether they didn't wind up having a child or not. And I say women because it seems to bother them more, but you can still have an influence in a child's life. I mean, if you don't want to have anything to do with children, that's fine, but if you didn't, if it didn't sort of happen that way, the cards didn't play out that way, whatever the situation is, you can still have a really positive effect. And definitely a godparent is one way. And certainly as Greeks, we take that's a very, very important role, as it is honestly in the Catholic religion as well, and all the religions have it, but certainly in the Orthodox. And I wrote this specifically, even though I am Greek, and there's a few Greek things in here, but it's for the Orthodox community. So if you're Russian or Bulgarian or Romanian, because I have like translations in there and stuff, it's for that. So I wanted to make it kind of broad based.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the Holy Land a couple of years ago, and I went to a lot of Orthodox churches. And it's interesting because I thought, oh, everybody's going to be Greek Orthodox, but there's a lot more Orthodox than just Greeks. I'm just, so it really opened my mind. But anyway, so the other thing is I'm a Sunday school teacher, and I became a Sunday school teacher.
That's right. Yeah.
Because when one of my goddaughters was 3 years old, my sister had her other daughter was like, 6 months older, 2.5 years apart. And I remember saying to my sister, when are you going to take her to church? Because my sister was not taking her to church. And my sister was very frazzled. She couldn't handle the 2 kids. I'm not putting her down, but she was very frazzled. And she's like, I don't have time. Meanwhile, I think back of like what my mother did, taking us all. And like there were no excuses back in the day. You just did it. Right. So she's like, can you help me? I said, yeah, I'll help you. She goes, maybe you take her 1 week, I'll take her the next. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. So I take her over to church, to the cathedral, and I wanted to go to Sunday school, and it really bothered me because by the time I was 3-4 years old, I knew how to do my cross. I knew how to do the Lord's Prayer.
3 fingers, right? Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
And it's the opposite way of the Catholic.
Yep. Yes. And this way. Yes. This the other way. And also I knew my Greek prayers, all this stuff.
Pateramon, Enter Sudanis.
Oh my God, that's so good.
I don't know the rest.
Paterimon o Indi Sudanis. And
the end was like Dosamin Simero. I'm remembering it as a 5-year-old kid. But
yes, that's great. That's great. All right. Well, we'll do it when we're done. We'll give you a little lesson. So I took her downstairs. And it was like to the kindergarten class, and it was bedlam. And I was like, okay, I can't leave her here because, when you take somebody's kid, you have to bring them home. That's part of the deal.
That's usually
So
the first rule.
right. So I was like, all right, I was like, I was going to sit. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to just stay in the class. So they're really like crazy and stuff. And so then I was like, well, can I help you with something? And whoever the woman, Jennifer, this girl at the time, woman at the time goes, yeah, could you go outside and get the snacks are outside or whatever. Long story short, I got involved. They kind of suck you into the vortex, but it was good because my niece, it also gave my niece the impetus, to come, her,
Yeah.
Nuna was the teacher, or I helped, at first I helped. And then a couple of years later, I became the main teacher. And then I wound up, ultimately, now I teach the like fourth, fifth, sixth, it's a wide range, but or fifth, sixth, and seventh graders. But
So your
anyway,
your personality is to just dive in. You just dive into everything, don't you?
I, why not? Why not? We're only going around this once, I think. Anyway,
Okay, anyway.
so I remember when I was teaching the kids, I wanted to make sure that they got a lot of our traditions, like name days,
Right. I'm
and
St. Demetrius Day, October 26th.
so wait, aren't you but you're Stavros? Are you baptized Stavros or
Yes.
right?
Stavros.
So Stavros is or Stavros is September 14th,
Oh,
but
it is? Okay.
right,
Well,
but
I was supposed to be named Demetrius, but I don't know why it didn't work out that way. But I was actually born on October 26th, which is
that's
just
Saint Demetrius
Demetrius.
Day, and back in the day, Greeks would name their kids on the day that their saint was baptized. So
Yeah.
so that's true.
It's a cool name. I would have liked it, Demetrius. It's kind of
Thank
cool.
you. I love it. I love it. Well, Stavros is nice too.
Yes.
So uh, I wanted to teach them, and I wanted to make sure they knew about godparents and just all the things that make our religion so rich. And I remember there was no resources for it, and I was trying to come up with like crafts and all this, which I'm not craft. I don't know anything about crafts, so it was hard. So anyway, that was another thing. And the last thing is my godmother, who is also my aunt, never had any children, but we were like her kids, and she is still very instrumental in our lives. She took me to my first play when I was 4 years old, which is one of the things that planted the seeds of me wanting to be a performer. And she's very smart, my aunt. She's very cultured, she's very well read, museums. I mean, she's, now she's older and she's going nuts because she can't go to the museums and they can't go to the movies and
Mm.
all this kind of thing. But so she was also a school teacher and she was a librarian. So I wanted to make my parents proud as well. So it's sort of like a accumulation of all those things. So I had this idea for the book, really, spawning from the Sunday school. And I wrote about 5 years ago or so, I wrote the text that I sort of had in my head. And then later I sort of wrote what illustrations I thought I would want. And but it took me quite a while. And then I had to have like the priest review. I had a few people review it. I talked to a few people that have published children's books. I mean, I got to tell you something. It was a territory that I knew nothing about.
Mm.
Thank God there's Amazon now, because back in the day, you would have had to find a publisher. So at least you can self-publish. I got an illustrator. I found an illustrator about a year and a half ago, and I worked with her. We had a lot of stop and starts, with whatever. She wound up homeschooling her kids and all this other stuff. So there was a lot of things that just took forever, and communicating via email all the time. But anyway, finally, the last, I would say since mid-December up until last week when it finally got released, thank God my web guy, who's fantastic, Thomas Beliza, I think you
Oh,
might
sure. I
know
know Thomas.
Thomas helped me because Amazon was giving us a hard time with the layout again. Not something that I know. And anyway, we finally got it. It's available on Amazon,
All
and
right.
I wanted it to be. I want it to be a book where one, to be taught in Sunday schools and whatnot. Also for a godparent to give as a gift, or the godchild to give, something for them to read together, and like sort of like a keepsake, a favor. And also, being that I do a lot of comedy in the Greek community, it's part of now my brand. So I can always do a book signing and, all that kind of stuff. So it
That's
all
great.
sort of came together. But I really do feel very positive about it, that I did it, that
Yeah.
feeling of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Again, 5 years. So it was a lot of pain. Um, but I'm glad it
Well,
came together,
congratulations.
and
That is
and I'm happy with the way that it looks. So
Congratulations. That is
thank
absolutely wonderful. I'm so happy for you that
thank
that
you.
worked out. And you know, you're great because you have like a niche now. I mean, and you've had a niche. I mean, you play all the Greek shows, and it's important to have a niche in comedy or any kind of entertainment because now, oh, we're gonna have a show. Who do we go to? You know, like for me, I get a lot of work because I'm clean, and you know, the corporate gigs because of the accountant thing. So it's I think it's really good that you have that, and it gets you work and you're able to travel and you
You
work with.
got it. You have to have a few of those little niches.
Yes.
And again, it's hard. And as we have evolved in this business, we have seen how social media has taken over.
Hmm.
So sometimes it's about the your podcast having that many listeners, your Twitter followers, or now Instagram, now TikTok. So
Hmm.
it's completely changed. But by the time I got into it, a few things. Number one, I wasn't I although I love comedy clubs, and I do as many as I possibly can, and aside from sort of like Governors and Brokerage and McGuire's, which is run in a much more family and again Long Island centric way. But I'm talking about like Funny Bones and Improvs.
Right.
I mean, I got to the point where I was like, all right, that's probably not going to be me unless I was able to open for somebody famous.
Right.
And then you kind of get on that trajectory, or you're on a TV show and you have some type of TV credits, or you're on Howard Stern or something, something where it got you some notoriety of some sort.
Right.
So that number one. And also I enjoy the what we call the private stuff. And also, let's face it, the club scene that was around 25 years ago has dissipated. A lot of
Hmm.
clubs have closed up. A lot of these rooms have closed up. So I'm glad that I didn't sort of zero in on it, even though I
Right.
wanted it.
No, you
I
have to
loved to have played,
diversify. You have to
I would have loved to
diversify.
have played the Funny Bone in Columbus,
Hmm.
but I'm glad I didn't kind of make that my main thing. And then this way also we sort of we grow with our act and our audience. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, listen, we've been on a long time,
I
and
know.
I'm probably going to wrap it up soon. But it's so nice to see you. So lovely to talk to you. I love having come into shows, and Ellen's on the show, and you know I miss those days, and I'm sure they'll be back, and I'm looking forward to it. And
Like I said last night when we did a show together with John LaRocchia
yeah.
and Les, when you are working with people that you admire and love and have fun with and
Mhm.
respect, it's not work. And
Right.
and now that as the years have gone on and I'm more confident in my act and I know I'm a better comic and everything, that's really becoming more of my mantra.
Right.
You get to
Right.
pick and choose a little bit. I mean, you might not necessarily pick and choose who you work with,
Right.
but it should be light, it should be fun. And when you get the opportunity to work with people like you guys, I
Hmm.
mean, that's it's really like hanging out and talk
Yeah.
and just having a good time.
Yeah, just being in the green room with people you like, it's just it's a vibe, it's fun, and you can't wait to get on stage, and it's a great ride home. You know, even if the gig isn't that good, you just still feel like, wow, I really had a good time tonight, and it was
Right,
fun to see
right. And
those
watching
people.
each other, watching the other evolve. I get so much joy when a comic that hasn't seen me in a long time is like, oh wow, I love your stuff, or oh my
Right.
gosh, that was great. And so it's good to it's good. Again, I'm going back to what I said a little earlier about, God, and God is big. And I just, people are put good, bad, and ugly, are put in front of you for a reason, and you meet people for a reason.
Yeah,
And
100%. That's 100% true.
that's why I try to always have that also in the front of my mind. But
Well, it's a
we'll
good
get
thing to
over.
realize because
We'll,
then when it gets you through the tough times and you realize that we're just a cog in the big machine, you know. It's like,
listen, we're lucky. We have families. You have your wife. You have your daughter, and my
mhm.
husband, and my sister. My the kids, the sister. So we're lucky. I've been doing. or I guess I'd say this, but there's a comic we both know. He was on my podcast, so it's not a secret, but I won't say his name. And he's single. He's great. He's a great comic, good writer, and he's single. He's, you know, whatever, I don't want to say his age, but he's a mature, and he lives alone. He doesn't live with anybody. And he was like, I'm lonely. I'm really lonely.
Mm.
I miss, I don't go, now I'm not on the road anymore. I'm not traveling. I'm not doing shows. I'm doing some virtual stuff. I'm doing some writing. But yeah, I'm really lonely. I mean, he doesn't really have anybody. He can't go see his parents. They're older. He can't be near them. I mean, it's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
So, but better days ahead.
Better days ahead. So,
Uh,
once again, congratulations on the book and the acting. And now you're going to be in the next season of Maisel. Is it even coming out?
Oh,
Or?
so you asked me about that. Acting is its own animal and also
Right.
very, very hard. Everything I've gotten with everything is I've gotten myself, right?
Right.
Representation's always been a challenge.
Mm.
So season 4 is now they're starting production. So I was on season 2 and 3 as a waitress,
I
featured
saw
as
you.
a waitress. So I can only go back as a waitress, which is fine. Hopefully I still fit in the
Did they
waitress,
give you the same thing of water? Is that it? That's
the
all.
water, but I don't know. I don't know what the plans are. And of course, now with COVID, I'm
Mm.
sure listen, the days with all that background, certainly for quite some time, is going to be over with. And again, you and I are accountants, so any way that they're going to find that is cheaper and it works, is
Hmm.
that's what's going to stay. Like,
Yeah, they're going to do
you know,
CGI background. So it's going to be computer
right,
generated
exactly.
backgrounds.
Green screen and all. So I have seen casting for some background again, but I think like before they would have gotten 100 people. Like now they'll get 20 background. They're not
Yeah.
getting as many because they also have to keep people apart. So we'll see. So I don't know, but if they call me again, I'm there, and I have to cut my hair again because that was the other thing that they're very into the hair, and they don't want to have to sit and style like long hair, because
Oh, right.
back then women had short
Yeah,
hair.
everybody had those like bobs, the bob
Right,
cuts
right,
or
right.
whatever they were.
But I'll do it for my art.
Of course, you'll. Well, Ellen Karis, this has been wonderful. Really great to speak to you, and good luck with everything. The book.
Thank you, and thank you. Ellen Karis is my website,
Yes, of course. Yeah, I'll put all that on the.
ELLENKARS, and Twitter, Instagram at Greek Chick Comic, and Facebook,
Great.
Ellen Karis Greek Goddess of Comedy. Book is available on Amazon. If you know
Amazon,
anybody that's Orthodox,
of course.
Christian.
And you have that CD, by the way, on Ellen Karis, right?
Yes, my CD, DVD, you can download it. Right, if you don't have a DVD player, get one on eBay, and then you can buy my DVD. As a matter of fact, my DVD might even be on the in the DVD player that you buy on eBay, because
There
who
you
knows?
go.
Who knows? Who knows? All right, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Really great to see you and talk to you, and we'll be in person again someday.
Definitely.
All right, Ellen Karis, thanks so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Let me
everybody.
put it on pause.